Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Taurus, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of October. I hope you are well. I'm using the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot for you today. So let's get straight on with this, see what's going on with you. Can I have 3 cards for Taurus, please? There's the first one. We have, get it turned over, we have the Queen of Swords in your recent past. Current energy, please, for Taurus. Thank you. We have the Hierophant. Very nice. That's the card of Taurus. So, very authentic expression of your energy in the here and now, which is very good. And what's coming towards Taurus, please, for October? We have the King of Cups. Okay. So, what do we have here at the bottom? We have the Ten of Swords at the bottom. But I rather like that because we've got, right behind it, we've got the Nine of Pentacles. It does seem to suggest that whatever difficulties you are facing at the moment, and they may be myriad, oh, hello, I'm going to use you, they're coming to an end. And tens in the tarot are completion. And the Ten of Swords is the completion of a difficult chapter, right? It's a difficult run, I think, when you go through the swords. But the Nine of Pentacles underneath feels like everything just sort of coming together, right? It could well be a payoff for an investment that you have already made that is coming to fruition, you know? But let's get some clarifiers on the table and we'll see what's going on here. Can I get some cards for the Queen of Swords, please? First card we have is the Five of Swords. And the Wheel of Fortune. Interesting. Tell me about the Hierophant, please. Thank you. We have the Eight of Swords. Whoa, shit. We have the Ten of Swords, and we also have something that fell out down here. We have the Four of Swords. I like that because there's progression right there, just within the clarifiers. And tell me about this King of Cups, please. Thank you. Queen of Cups. And the Death card. So we've got double Scorpio there with the King of Cups and the Death card. And we have the Sun at the bottom of the deck. What did I say? The sun's coming out. That's absolutely magnificent, Taurus. Right. Excuse me. Pull up my blanket here because it's a little bit chilly in Northumberland today. So, this said, we start with this Queen of Swords, and I think before I even get into the cards, I really like what's going on underneath here. The main cards, often they can feel to me like they're kind of bleeding into each other, right? And there's one big picture that is formed just by the 3 images that are on these cards, right? Here's this huge thing that's going on. And then sometimes it's just a very neat progression of one thing to another thing to another thing, right? And that's kind of what the outward view of what you're doing and what you're experiencing is coming across as. Perhaps to other people, maybe even perhaps to yourself. But what is going along underneath is the far more subjective, I think, subjective internal experience of what is getting you from one step to the next, to the next. You know, this is very methodical and rightly so for an earth sign. You know, if there was if this was a reading for a fire sign, I'd be wondering what was going on with them because it's all just a little bit too tidy, right? And that's not generally how fire signs work. They tend to be a bit messy and all over the place, but driven, you know, in a random direction. We just sort of take deviations here, there and everywhere. The methodical nature of what I'm seeing here makes me feel like you are absolutely on the right path. And it's such a vague statement, isn't it? You're on the right path. And what does that even mean? Interesting. Perhaps a rumination for another day. But in the way that I often associate with the King of Pentacles, which is a Taurus card, not currently on the table, but, you know, is a Taurus card. It's that stepped progression where there's lots of things going on underneath and they come together to show you what the next step is, and then you take that. And then there's loads of stuff going along underneath and that's the next step and you take that too. Now, let's start over here with this Queen of Swords. That's Libra energy. And along with being associated with things like, great discernment and all that sort of thing, I feel she appears when clear thinking is necessary, right? She's a supportive energy to the act of being able to deal with a lot of things at once, and usually quite dense and heavy things, and actually they could be of an emotional nature, although she's usually a little less associated with that. But what she's very good at is sort of turning around and looking at your emotional state objectively. Okay, what of this actually has any root in reality, and what of it is just my mind creating extra swords where I don't need them, I feel like the whole sword suit is really, really challenging, actually, in its entirety. And it really does give, I think, some validation to the notion that the more swords you have, the more difficult things become. Which is to say, the more that you overthink things, the more that you bring your swords into play, the less likely you are to get anywhere, because everything just gets clattered and you end up kind of spearing yourself with all of the swords. Better to have your sword processes acting as a secondary point of input, I think, because what we've got going on here with your recent past, with that Five of Swords and the Wheel of Fortune there, is, I would think, a clear understanding of where your thinking has been. I was going to use the word faulty, but again, I'm finding that problematic today as well. Not as clean as it could be. So that would be a realization that you've been stuck in a cognitive loop, and perhaps that is something to do with your self-worth, or a need for validation through something that you are doing or through your personal relationships that is not present in yourself, right? The thing that is doing the validating is not in there with you. Oh, I'm proper tripping over my words today. What's that all about? So, in so much as, perhaps you've been working really hard on something and it's not getting the recognition that it deserves at this point, right? It would be very easy to become disheartened by that, and it would be very easy as a Taurus to turn that around and use it as a way of kicking yourself, punishing yourself, right? But this Wheel of Fortune here is highlighting it for what it is, like in very much the same way that the Queen of Swords is. It's like, now here is a point of reference for you. Here is something for you to learn about your cognitive processes and why it is that they are not helping you at this point. There are other things that the Five of Swords is associated with, like, for example, Pyrrhic victories. You win, but at what cost? And at this point, I don't think that that's you. I think that might be someone that you're dealing with. But I always get a really strong sense of narcissism here. Not your narcissism, Taurus. One of the last signs to ever wander down that road. But I'm just noticing something about this card that I've never noticed before, and that's, well, I've noticed it, but I hadn't really put it together. Well, you see those clouds in the background? They're off at a very odd angle indeed, and they're kind of spread out. It makes it look like it's really windy. And then I notice that you look at this chap in the front and his hair's blowing out behind him. And his tunic actually is blowing in the wind too. I feel like a lot of you have been overwhelmed, just like when you're outside and it's really, really windy and you can't hear anything, because the wind is literally whipping past your ears and it's taking the sound and it's just dissipating it somewhere before it reaches your ears. It feels like there has been a negative presence around you who's been acting like this, acting like the wind for you. And so you've almost been stuck in a bit of an echo chamber of your own head, without words of encouragement or, anything like that around you. You feel to me like you've been quite isolated. But the Queen of Swords and the Wheel of Fortune here together are almost acting like... Well, actually, look at this Queen of... She's sitting on a cloud there. She looks like she's doing something with the weather. You know, it's dropping the wind. And suddenly you can hear things that you couldn't hear before. Now, we could be talking in a kind of metaphysical sense, and maybe your intuition hasn't been getting much of a look in. Maybe, you know... Maybe things of a 3D nature, the things that you have been overthinking have been playing a little bit too loudly in the theatre of your mind, and now they are quiet, and there's a sense of peace here around you that is starting to show. When we get into your current energy, we've got the Hierophant. Generally speaking, I prefer to see the Empress as a representation of Taurus energy, because the Hierophant can be quite rigid, it can be quite inflexible and dogmatic and, you know, all that sort of thing. But because it's you, Taurus, there's something just very strong and very foundational about it. And when I say foundational, I mean historical. Because what these swords cards here with the Wheel of Fortune seem to be depositing in your present is somebody who is kind of arriving at themselves. And that's you, Taurus, being like, holy shit. You know, we've talked about this before, about, you know, when you go back and you challenge the narratives that you hold in your head of your life and your history and what transpired to get you to where you were now. When you challenge those, it necessarily changes who you are in the present day. If, for example, like I did for a long time, like you consider yourself to be a victim, and I did, I walked around with a massive victim complex all of the time. And it was as a direct result of the things that had happened in my life up until that point. When I started to challenge my understanding of what had happened, and, you know, and a huge part of that was, you know, me taking responsibility for things, or, you know, absolutely unhitching any sense of responsibility for particular things away from myself, because actually they were nothing to do with me, and I was walking around feeling shit for something that wasn't anything to do with me. I started to look at my experiences very, very differently. And suddenly I started to see, I've spoken about this before, started to see everything that I'd experienced as actually somewhat of a gift. It gave me something that people who had not experienced this had. And yes, that was probably mental scarring of some sort, but it was a deep, deep insight into the workings of me and also of other people, right? You know, seeing firsthand how damaged people can be and how they inflict that forwards, they project it onto other people. The whole world started to take on a very different colour when I changed that narrative. That seems to be what you're going through at the moment, Taurus. Now, I do think that things have been kind of tricky for you recently, and these might be material issues. I'm not seeing any pentacles here on the table, but, you know, things that speak to your material security and stability would be things that would be very unsettling for a Taurus. But it's the way that you process what is happening. So it's not like, oh, I'm just going through a funk at the moment, you know, money's not coming in as fast as I would like, and that's not cool. Money's going out a little faster than I would like, that's also not cool. Maybe I have some instability in my housing situation, you know, something like that. But the difference is the reasons that you attribute to why this would be happening. So there is a version of you in the past that might have defaulted to perhaps somewhat of, I don't know, like me, like a victim mentality about it. I'm always getting picked on. The universe is always doing shit like this to me. I don't understand, right? Or it might be, God, I'm so fucking shit. I can't even look after my own stuff, you know, I'm talking about like the activation of you know, your root chakra and the things that make you feel threatened. There's something altogether more peaceful about the way that you are looking at things here, because you've gone through this process a million times before, Taurus. You've gone through, and it'll be wearing different clothes every time, but you have been through this over and over and over again. What this represents to me is the breaking of a cycle here. Because before, where you felt trapped or stuck or like a victim or victimized or any of those things, or people didn't understand why they're not thoughtful, why am I so terrible? You know, these are the cognitive loops that we're talking about, that we all get stuck in, that lead to an absolute mental deadlock. You know, I can't do anything because I'm shit, or I can't, you know, I'm shit so I can't do anything. You know, this kind of loop of helplessness. It's coming up to a crescendo with the Ten of Swords, but it's coming up to a sense of completion, right? Now, if you were to go from that, like, consider that you've basically just been doing that for like a really, really long time. The fact that the Four of Swords is coming up here feels to me like a break in the cycle, right? We even see it here with the shadow cards at the bottom of the deck. We've got the Ten of Swords then leading to the Nine. I forgot what numbers were for a second there. To the Nine of Pentacles, right? So we're going from feeling helpless, feeling stuck, feeling trapped, feeling like almost you've been left for dead by circumstances, right? Instead of looping around to the Eight of Swords, we've got you going to the Nine of Pentacles. Okay, and in its most basic, it's like, well, actually things aren't that bad. It's okay, right? Maybe I just need to spend a little less of this, put a bit more energy into this thing that I'm working with, right? The Nine of Pentacles for me is about energetic resource management, and your money will absolutely form part of that, but also your time and the effort that you put into things. There's a shift here in putting effort into feeling shit about everything, feeling stuck, feeling helpless, feeling like you can't do anything, into, well, what can I do, right? Here's the Taurus practicality coming in. What can I do? What makes me feel peaceful? What stops my brain from sitting in a state of terror about what might be going on here, right? I don't know about you, but as a Capricorn ascendant and a Leo specifically, doing things makes me feel good, right? So having some sort of vague plan, it's only vague because I'm a Capricorn ascendant, right? I'm not a Capricorn sun, so I kind of got a vague plan of what I'm doing. But the Leo part of me likes to take charge of what I can, and sometimes that's just really little things. Sometimes I have to break things down into really small manageable chunks because it's just a massive edifice of shit that needs to be done, right? And I have all sorts of little mechanisms that I use for helping me with that, right? I've got a bullet journal. I'm talking to Tauruses, so obviously, you know, most of you have probably got journals. I even have a little fucking productivity timer thing here, right? Because I have realised that part of my process is that I have to zone out for just a little bit of time. And if I give myself permission to zone out for 15 minutes and do nothing, which is what the timer does there, then suddenly when that timer goes off, it's okay, I can do a thing, right? It stops me staring off into space. Now, I don't think that Tauruses, generally speaking, stare off into space, but there is a fundamental shift here in the way that you allow your mind to fuel the fire of anxiety and all these sorts of things. I mean, the thing that's missing there is the Nine of Swords, interestingly enough. We skipped straight from the 8 to the 10. But anxiety and fear of failure and all of these things that are kind of looping around over and over again to a point of mental rest. Like I said before, you know, using your swords as a secondary process seems to me to be the thing that is helping you out a lot here. I mean, we've got the Hanged Man and the Sun at the bottom of the other deck there. Oh shit, there's that Two of Wands. I knew it was there somewhere. I felt it before I even pulled any cards. We've got a change of perspective and we've got joy here. Now, whichever way around this is for you, in whatever way that it resonates, what we've got is a change in the way that you are seeing things, right? In some ways it might be a submission to an energy, and the submission might well be an understanding that actually there are people who have really acted badly in your past. And you need to accept that, right? Rather than finding a way to make it your fault, you need to accept that. And what changes there in the present for you is the understanding that not everything goes badly for you. You don't fuck everything up. That sometimes there are just people who, you know, despite all the goodwill and intentions that you input into their motivations, just really aren't. And that's okay. it's okay as long as you are in a position where you can move yourself to a safe distance away from those kind of people, you know? There's the biggest undertow here of a complete mental overhaul of your processes. A recognition of patterns, a recognition of cycles, and then a breaking of the cycles. You know, it could be that you're finding that there are many things within your life to be grateful for, and that's really cool. But I think it's a lot more to do with the way that you view yourself and the level of compassion that you extend to you seems to be getting somewhat of a kick up this month. Because rather than being rigid and inflexible and dogmatic, this Hierophant here is feeling more like a position of power, right? Even, I love him here in the pagan otherworlds, right? We don't have any of the pomp and finery that we associate with other depictions of the Hierophant, where it's just, you know, it's got very Catholic overtones, right? So it's all about who's got the biggest hat and whatnot, you know. But it's generally an acolyte card, right? In so much as there are two other people who are depicted there, right? And they are the acolytes of the Hierophant, and they're learning all the things from him, right? This one's much more simple, and there are no acolytes there. More than that, it's about the position that he's standing in, right? There's no amazing throne that he's sat on or anything like that. He's literally got a pitchfork in his hand, and he's just holding his hand up like that. This feels like the most simple yet profound expression of a boundary erection here. Stop. You don't get to go any further. Now, whether this is with people external to you, or whether this is to the process that has had you looping for quite a long time, no, I see you for what you are. And I'm not going to play this game anymore. I don't want this anymore. I don't want to be stuck in this loop of perhaps a victimhood, or certainly a sense of crippling responsibility, you know, for things that I'm not responsible for. Maybe associated feelings like guilt and shame and all those kind of things, right? No, like, stop. It's not happening. It's got such presence, this card. And it's not because of all the riches and the finery that are depicted on it. It's not even because of the power that is being demonstrated, you know, in his sort of overseeing of all of the acolytes. It's of self. Hello. It's strong. It's not bullheaded. It's not stubborn, although, you know, probably could be if you pushed it. You know, it's not about being absolutely anchored to a position and refusing to give way at all. It's softer than that. It's like, I'm going to give way. I'm going to change my perspective on those things that are not actually helping me be any stronger anymore. Because I've got the information now. Queen of Swords has seen to that. I've got all of the information and I understand it. I am processing it. The interesting thing for me is at the point at which you put your hand up and say no to the process, it makes saying no to people outside of you much, much easier. There's a real sense of self-discipline here around this reading, Taurus. But more than that, it's an authentic expression of strength. I want to just pull, which deck is it? I'm going to go with Lost Forest. Pull another one for that Hierophant. Tell me about the Hierophant, please. Fucking strength. A card that's come with it is the Four of Cups. And there's the Empress at the bottom of the deck. I can't make this fucking shit up. It's all there. Sometimes the most significant periods of accelerated growth that we go through are literally when we put two things together in our own head. It's literally just ding, oh, look at that connection. And the connection is that you are strong and that you are capable, and there are many things that you can do, and the only thing that ever really gets in your way is you. Think about it, Taurus. Your past narrative might have had you feeling like you were persecuted or just deeply unlucky, or, at worst, a bad person, piece of shit. No wonder all these things happen to you. But the reality is that actually there is only you who has ever been strong enough to be able to stand up to yourself and stop yourself from moving. Now, if you were to remove all of those obstacles, and they are 100% mental, 100% mental, what could you achieve? If you didn't worry so much, if you weren't afraid of rejection quite so much, what could you achieve? Well, the answer is literally fucking anything and everything, Taurus. This Four of Cups here speaks very, very strongly to a fear of rejection. Now, that fear of rejection only comes if you desperately need the validation or the approval or whatever of other people, right? If you're fairly... what's the word I'm looking for? Ambivalent. If you're fairly ambivalent about whether you get those things or not from other people because you believe in yourself, then not doing something because of a fear of rejection is just something that won't happen to you at all. Or doing something because you're afraid of being rejected if you don't do it. The Hierophant does also talk about established stuff. He'd literally be talking about societal expectations on you. So maybe you're middle-aged and you're not married and you don't have any children. What is society? So do you feel the weight of society on you all the time? There are 101 other ways in which you could be currently non-conforming with what society thinks that you should do. And when you realise that that's what you've been doing, and subconsciously policing yourself to try and fit in with everybody else all of the time, remember that, at heart, the herd is very much a present and real thing for you. When you look back over your life, how many times have you stopped yourself from reaching out for the stars? Because you didn't feel like you deserved it, or because you didn't feel like you were worthy of it, or you didn't think that you would get there, or because of a fear of failure or something like that. How many daydreams have you had where you did something entirely different to what everybody else was doing and then actually scared yourself in the process? Oh my God, God, I couldn't possibly do that. What am I even doing daydreaming about it? It's that kind of energy here. But this, strength and the Four of Cups, fucking bingo. Taurus, this is a huge fucking power up, and the beautiful thing about it is that it is so fucking subtle because it was always so fucking simple. Not easy, absolutely not easy. Do not underestimate the power of what is happening here in your subconscious right now. But it is simple. And the simple truth is, too many swords stop Taurus from doing what they're supposed to be doing. It stops Taurus from allowing themselves to be the big fucking creature that they are supposed to be. Honestly, that's kind of baffling to me. It really is. You're so fucking majestic and shit. I know so many Tauruses now. I'm so blessed to know so many Tauruses in my life. And you're all fucking amazing and incredibly capable people. But we talked about, fuck it, we're going back to 2020 now. That whole mind of a cow in a bull. You don't realise that you're a bull. You're wandering around being like, oh my God, I'm a cow, I'm sorry. That sort of thing. But no, you're designed to be big. You're designed to take up space. You are designed to be powerful and strong. And if you are denying that within yourself because it scares you to step into that, then you are the one who is holding yourself stuck. Because it is not only your fucking destiny, but also your fucking birthright to be exactly that. Don't make me start lecturing you. I don't feel like I need to, because I feel like this is something that you are realising. Now, what comes from that is going to be different for each of you, but I guarantee you'll be feeling much more fucking sturdy once you've had these realizations, once this cycle, the chains of it are just snapped away from you, you know? We've got the King of Cups, that Scorpio energy, in what's coming towards you in October. And it's immediately clarified, followed up with the Queen of Cups. Ooh, forgot that. It's Cancer energy. But I don't think at this point the signs are really important, because they're archetypes of energy, right? So here we have water, which in the tarot is emotions, and we have the masculine, active side of it, and we have the feminine, receptive side of it. It's nothing to do with sex or gender. Tarot doesn't care about that, right? It's about the presentations of the energy. This is perfect balance. This is emotional balance here, Taurus. Now, if you have been struggling of late, and I feel like there are many of you who have, for various reasons, for, you know, whatever they are, but it's felt like things have been a bit like this. October is a month that sees everything coming into a state of balance for you. The Queen of Cups is because she's receptive, it's a lot about how you receive emotion, right? It's a lot about what you do with stuff when you've actually taken it into you, know. And as we've talked about before, you internalize too much about what everybody else thinks and what everybody else's expectations are of you and all that sort of stuff. The King is about how you outwardly express it. I mean, this feels like a really firm set of boundaries that are coming in. Being all like, well, I know that my Queen is sensitive, my internal receptive place. And so what I allow in here must now be filtered. Right? And I'm going to filter that. Conversely, the way that I express myself, right? Tauruses generally have had a lot of issues, speaking quite generally here, with things like people pleasing, right? You're wanting to make sure that everybody thinks the best of you all the time, you know, and that will make you push yourself and push yourself and push yourself and to do more and more things. But it will also have you squashing down any kind of feelings of resentment or bitterness that you might have further and further down. I mean, it feels like everything's kind of popping up to the surface, and it's like, well, no wonder I felt resentful. I felt completely disempowered to be able to say no. I did not feel like I could say no because I wasn't worth enough to say no. That's not cool, Taurus, right? That's what's coming to the surface. But the expression outwardly of that is the ability to be able to say no, or yes, or maybe, I'll see, leave it with me, right? If you want something doing, give it to a Taurus. That's my thing, right? Because they will get it done. Maybe it's a Virgo too, but definitely a Taurus, because your word is really important to you, and you've got that incredible work ethic that won't let you do a shitty job with anything, right? It has to be good. But I think you've stretched yourself, and I think that those feelings of resentment and the, you know, the kind of almost passive aggressive, I wish everybody would just stop doing this, right? When you directly face what it is that makes you feel like that, and you express directly no, yes, whatever, complete sentences all on their own, it changes a lot about the way that you are perceived, which, let's face it, probably is quite important, but more importantly, the way that you experience yourself. I mean, that final card there for you is Death. It's a Scorpio card. You know, we will be moving into Scorpio season at the end of October, and that's the thing probably being highlighted here. But at the same time, I feel what is really important here is the personal transformation. It's complete emotional stabilization and ability to be able to put the boundary up and say, I'm really strong, I'm really solid, and I'm also worthy of just being here. I don't have anything to prove, but I'm certainly not going to take on somebody else's neuroses or projections or whatever and make them my own. No, it stops now. Tell me about this Death card, please. Fuck my life. We've got the death card again, actually doubling down on the message, right? That's like, I said what I said, right? The transformation for you this month is huge, Taurus. Now, I said right at the beginning, when I did the meditation before I started your reading, that I had a very strong sense of you moving. Like, it was actually like there was a light that was getting brighter and brighter, and there was a sense of a crossroads appearing in front of you, right? Vague and indistinct at first, but getting stronger. Now, whether this relates to your next step, because, you know, as we discussed, we like to make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row before we move to the next thing, like that measured progression. Whether it is that, or whether it is that over the course of October, all of the little things that you do start to firm up your vision of what that next level of progression is. I don't know, but there's something quite powerful about the change that is wrought within you as you are coming to approach what this crossroads is. I like this. Four of Cups in reverse. So where it was in the upright here, and where that was a very real and present fear, I might not fit in, I might not be rejected, I might be completely wrong, you know, all of that sort of thing. Here it's showing up in the reverse, and this is where it should be. This is an absolute gratitude for what you do have, but it's a lack of fear. It's a complete lack of fear about being rejected. This is where your bullheadedness and your stubbornness comes in and works in your favour. When it is put into the act of maintaining boundaries and acting as a filter for what is good coming into the soft centre heart of you, and what is bullshit and needs to be kept out. I want to point out that at the bottom of the deck we have the Ace of Pentacles. There is definitely a sense of something quite dramatic. Fuck me, like that's a fucking King of Pentacles sat behind it. There is something akin to quite a large opportunity. Well, I was going to say dramatic opportunity, but I don't want to scare you, because drama is one of those words that can be a little bit pejorative at times, right? But let's say significant. Now, an Ace of Pentacles can talk about a seed that is planted. That gives you the potential to change your material environment in some way, right? And for the better. So something that gives you a little bit more money, which is great, right? Or a little bit more room if you're moving house, you know, or these sorts of energies. But it can talk about a point of focus. Really strong point of focus. Because I'm looking at these two cards here, right? We've got the Ace of Pentacles here, and we've got the Sun card, and it feels to me like the Sun wants to hide behind here. You've got a hole in the centre there that looks like it's the red light of the Sun. And as you're getting closer and closer to this, you can kind of look through the hole, and then suddenly the Sun appears, right? That point of great positivity. It all requires a bit of a change in perspective. But that's here. That's something that you're dealing with right now. But everything's changing in the month of October for you. And it's almost like this symbolic act of Eight of Swords, Ten of Swords being crushed, right? Being squashed, is the necessary precursor to what you do next. Now, I do believe, I also said right at the beginning when I saw that Nine of Pentacles, that it could well be something that you have already planted the seeds of, that is coming to fruition this month. Possibly something that you might have even fucking forgotten about, you know? Something that you did a little while ago. And now suddenly the results of it are coming back to you. I think that that's really possible. And from there, it's possible to expand it further. October is going to be a very interesting month. And it feels like it's one of those months that actually catapults you quite hard in a direction, but that you don't notice until you get there. Because you're doing everything in order, and you're doing everything very efficiently, and we're kind of looking at yourself and looking at your past and your narratives and all that sort of thing. And then before you know it, you kind of look up and you're like, oh, holy shit, where am I? So you've got somewhere without worrying about it. So it's like you just arrived at a destination, and it's where you want to be. And suddenly you feel good and you feel strong and you're like, well, I'll just do the next step then. October's excellent, Taurus. I'm here for this all day long. Right, I'm going to go to Vimeo now. So if you'd like to join me over there, you are very, very welcome. The link is going to be in the description box. We're going to look at October specifically, and particularly these double death cards here. If you don't fancy doing that, that's absolutely cool. This is a month for kind of rolling with it, right? King, Queen of Cups, just roll with it and see where it takes you. But I do think you've broken the back of the hardest thing, Taurus, and from here on out, it's getting brighter. It's getting lighter and it's getting brighter. And it's about time, because it feels like things have been difficult for a little while. It's definitely a bit of a break. So, breakthrough, if you will. I'm going to leave it there. I really hope that this helped, as ever, Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.